is Catherine Espinal. I am in the American Detective Fiction and Film class. My research topic is about Fatty Arbuckle, though Fatty Arbuckle is a nickname. His Fatty Arbuckle's real name is Roscoe Conkling Arbuckle, but people call him Fatty Arbuckle because of his weight. He had an enormous weight since he was young. Since he was born 16 pounds, and that's like a record in history because most babies they're not born over like 10 pounds. It's crazy for a baby to be born 16 pounds when they're born. But this birth with his weight, it led to complications with his mother. And though she did not die in childbirth, but she did die 12 years later because of complications from the birth that she had. His father despised him ever since he was young because of his weight and how he was. Though the father suspected that the mother, she had an infidelity because the mother and William Arbuckle, they were both thin. However, Roscoe Arbuckle was born very fat. He was born very enormous for a baby. So he thought that the mother had an infidelity. And due to that, the father named him Roscoe Conkling Arbuckle, though he gave him his last name, but he named him Conkling because that was the last name of the guy that the mother had an infidelity with. Fatty Arbuckle was an American film actor, director, and screenwriter, and his weight played a lot into the roles that he had. It actually was played a lot into his roles because a lot of the movies he made, there was a lot of the names where it had fatty in it. It was basically like his whole, it was like kind of like his whole personality, all of his roles. He was born in Smith Center, Kansas in 1887, though he moved to California a year after his birth. A fun fact, he was the first actor to earn $1 million a year. He became very popular due to the weight and his comedic films that he made. Roscoe Arbuckle started his showbiz by entering a talent show. In the talent show, he sang and danced, but he was not impressing the crowd. And when he saw the failure that he was producing, he tripped, he made a backflip, and he fell into the orchestra pit. This had made the crowd happy. They applaud him, and it made them laugh. So when he did that, he realized that, oh, like I can make people laugh. However, Roscoe did impress the crowd with his wit and his in the comedy that he made. He was recorded a good singer and dancer because that jumped into Roscoe's singing career, and he became an opera singer. So much so that he impressed people like Enrico Caruso and other artists around the world. Also Louis Brooks. He liked the dance that he had with Roscoe Arbuckle, and Enrico Caruso noticed his singing, and he encouraged him to sing full time because of how good of an opera singer he was. Though Arbuckle did not have a good start to life because of his weight and how his mother died young when he was young, and he had a father that despised him. Did not have a great, and he did not enter life greatly, but it did benefit him in the future. However, my whole thing about this research is that fame can be very great. It has a lot of successes into being famous, but there are cons, bad sides to fame, and that impacted Fatty Arbuckle because that led to the scandal that happened later in his life when he was in his peak of success. The good sides of fame is that Fatty Arbuckle, he started out with his opera singing, and his reputation skyrocketed because of how successful he was in singing. And he went it was so great that he went on tour with a man named Leon Errol, and it became so grand that he even performed in China and Japan, and he performed there in 1909. He was great at singing and dancing, but he also had skill into not only performing but to be a comedian. So he started his film career by signing with Selig Polyscope Company, and when he appeared in several films, he signed with Universal Studios in 1913. Now, when it comes to fame, you usually start out little, but when people get to notice your skills, then you eventually tend to get noticed by bigger people and eventually sign with them because they like you. And then so the good thing about fame is that when popular company notices you, then others are going to want to sign with you, because when companies see that you are with a popular film company, they're going to be like, oh my god, you must be good because you signed with this company, your skill must be good, you must be really funny. So so once you appear in one hit film, other companies are going to notice, and then you're going to appear in their hit films, and eventually you're going to start winning money, you're going to start knowing a lot of famous people, and your life becomes more better because you're famous people know you're in these hit movies and stuff like that. So Arbuckle, in his career, he befriended Charlie Chaplin when he was his co-star in a comedy film, and he also befriended Buster Keaton, that ended up into a long friendship with him and actually served him really well when the scandal happened with Fatty Arbuckle and Virginia Rapp. They starred in 14 movies together, and he did a lot for Keaton because eventually he turned control of his production company over to Keaton, and when they started in a movie together, he offered him a small part in the next film and went, offering a part in a film, that's pretty great, because then if the movie becomes a hit, then you'll be getting some of the profit from it too. So Fatty Arbuckle did not only stand out because of the people he knew, like Chaplin, like Charlie Chaplin, Mabel Normand, and Buster Keaton, but he did it because of hard work, his wit, his skill, his good use of being funny. So Paramount noticed Roscoe's success and made him an offer that no person is going to want to refuse. So as I said before, once you star in a hit film with a really good company, others are going to want to sign with you, and with that you keep progressing in the food chain of money and fame. So Paramount, they offered him $1,000 a day, 25% of the film profits he was in, and he had overall creative control of the films. So not only did he gather a lot of money from the movie profits and the $1,000 he got a day, but he got to be creative with the films that Paramount was going to produce. So a lot of the films that Fatty Arbuckle did have roles that were entirely written on his weight. It was the whole thing. That was why he was funny. And it was written on his weight and his humor. It's not all on his weight. He was also funny. He made it funny. He made his weight was a key benefit in the role, but it was also because he made it funny. So many titles, as said before, a lot of the nickname Fatty, it was in the movie roles. It was in the movie names, titles. And some of the movie titles were called Fatty's Tin Type Tangle, Fatty's Plucky Pup, and he appeared in a drag called Miss Fatty. Um, there is also there was also another thing why he skyrocketed was because he was in a film called A Noise from the Deep and made an important impact for Arbuckle's career because it was the first time that they showed a pie in the face move that was very comedic for the people in the film. People thought it was really funny, and even it is even used in today's world where the main character would get a pie in the face and it'll make the audience laugh because it's funny. Now, those are the many good impacts of being famous. However, it can take a toll on the person itself, and there are bad sides to it. I will say before I forget that there is when you're famous, a lot of people will not like it. A lot of people will be envious of you. They will be jealous of you. And if something happens in your life, then it is they can take advantage of it and bring you down because of the success that you have. They see it to their advantage. So you will befriend a lot of good people, but a lot of people will also try to bring you down because of because of all the things that you have, like Arbuckle did. So he had a huge success in his singing career and his film career, but the film industry can be very cruel, just like the modeling industry, the music industry. Film, it can also be very cruel because the contract that Arbuckle had with Paramount Pictures had required him to be over 250 pounds, and not only that, at least 250 pounds, but they even suggested that he is 500 or 550 or 100 pounds over than what his original weight is, which is very, very concerning because being obese, it can lead to many health problems and mental problems because not only is he not comfortable in his own skin, his physical health is also declining because of his weight. So this had left Roscoe to be about 300 pounds for the remaining of his life, and this was bad for his health because he died due to a heart attack. Heart attacks can be triggered by high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and those are the results from eating a lot of junk food. So, Arbuckle used his weight for a good thing, to get a lot of money, to get a lot of movie roles. However, it was not good for his mental health, for his physical health at all, because his weight caused him to have a heart attack from all the bad stuff that he was eating. So Arbuckle had to eat unhealthily to maintain his heavy weight for the movies he starred in, which obviously resulted in his death. And he was young. He was in his middle ages, right? He died in 1933. So he was in his 30s. So that's pretty young in my opinion. So Arbuckle had to eat very unhealthily. This is not the first time though, because in many actors in modern films, they usually lose weight and gain muscle for them to be in action movies and to appear muscular for the role that they are given. For example, like Chris Hemsworth, he had to engage himself into hardcore workouts so that he can fully become the role that he was given for Extraction 2. So for Arbuckle, he had to keep eating to fulfill his role. However, Chris Hemsworth, he had to lose weight and gain muscle so that he can look muscular for the role that he's in for Extraction 2. And for the many stunts that he had to do, he had to be strong so he can do them. But for Fatty Arbuckle, unfortunately, he did not lose weight. He only gained weight to be and be unhealthy his whole life because to fit those roles and to appear more funny when he did those films. And this weight took not only was his physical health declining, but it can also affect the mental health because he hated it when people called him fatty, especially on set. And this was like kind of like his nickname that people put on him, but it was very it can take a toll on the mental health because it was all that he was known for. He was only known for being fat. not for like also for his humor as well, but people only saw him as fatty or fat and funny. That's all that he was to other people's eyes. So um Fatty Arbuckle maintained his weight for movies, but he did not want his weight to become a joke for others to get a laugh out of. So even though he used his weight for being funny in those films, he did not want people outside of those films to make fun of him, to laugh about his weight. Um he even there's one time on set when people would call him fatty, he would retaliate and be like, I have a name, I'm not just fatty, I have my name, Roscoe Arbuckle. Thanks. um when it comes to show business, many actors have bad mental health because being a movie star can be overwhelming, and people turn to unhealthy habits to cope from all the pressure that they're under. Some, actors to this day, singers, even singers, they turn to alcohol and drugs to cope. For Fatty Arbuckle, it was to eat. Even some people binge eat because their mental health is not it's not good. It even happens in some models, instead of eating a lot, they actually don't eat a lot because the modeling industry is very harsh. They um some modelings in the movie industry, they develop eating disorders because the demand to be tall, skinny, and pretty can take a toll on the model's mind, and the passion that they have for it drives them to be the best they can be, which results them to being unhealthy physically and mentally. It causes them to barely eat, to develop eating disorders, because to be skinny you need to not eat a lot. So it can be being in the music industry, modeling industry, film industry. It's great when you have a lot of money, but it can really affect the physical health, mental health. That's why some actors and singers, they die from overdose, or from drugs, or they get addicted to drugs, or they get addicted to alcohol and stuff like that. um so, being famous and getting a lot of money for movies may be beneficial for a time, but the cost is to be physically and mentally unhappy. Maybe it's the cost for being famous. Um, and not so, so, Arbuckle, he was very famous, and there are bad parts to it, like his weight, his mental health, and examples I've given from today's world is how it plays into being famous. But that did not stop there for Arbuckle. Arbuckle was at the highlight of his career in 1921, earning $1 million a year. However, due to his hard work, he decided to take a vacation around Labor Day. He thought, oh well, I'm making a lot of money. I worked very hard for this money all my life. Let's take a little vacation. So on September 5th, he rented several rooms at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco with some of his friends and threw a gin party. Sounds great, right? But however, throwing this party was the biggest mistake that Arbuckle did, because it ended up being a scandal for him. It's very bad. One little thing, one little mess up in a famous person's life can end up very badly for them for years, gossip, and all that. Uninvited guests appeared at his party, and among those guests appeared Virginia Rapp, a woman who was known to get drunk and become wild at the parties. She has been known to overdo it at those parties. She had too much to drink that day and ended up in bed for 2 days. And before she ended up bedridden, she clutched at her stomach and tore at her clothes because of the pain she was in. So because she was drinking so much, her health was declining, and it was declining by the minute, and she was bedridden for 2 days, and she ended up being in the hospital. However, while in the hospital, Virginia Rapp's friend Maud Delmont told the doctors that Rapp was sexually assaulted by Roscoe Arbuckle because he was the main one who threw the party. Delmont wanted someone to blame, so she blamed Roscoe Arbuckle. So she blamed Roscoe Arbuckle for Virginia Rapp. She said that he sexually assaulted her. However, the doctors found no signs of sexual assault. Um, However, when things like that happen, usually police come in and they get statements. And the police took Dalmont's accusation very seriously because she was known to be an extortionist. And extortionists, they really pressure at things. So her for being an extortionist, and at that time, the police were like, oh yeah, definitely, she's got to be right. So they had a theory that Virginia Rapp's organs might have been crushed by Arbuckle's weight when he was apparently sexually assaulting her. So that had led into an investigation like, oh, her organs could have been crushed. This could have been it. So then, however, Virginia Rapp died of a ruptured bladder, and she had bladder issues early in her life. So that was the cause of death. So, but, with the accusation that Arbuckle had crushed her organs, that could have been the result of her crushed organs her ruptured bladder from his weight. And when she died on September 9th, 1921, Fatty Arbuckle was charged with manslaughter, and he figured to just turn himself in without trouble than just putting up a fight saying, no, I'm innocent. But he turned himself in. He was like, all right, well, yeah. All his friends had described Fatty Arbuckle to be very gentle and kind. So that could play into why he went in without trouble instead of putting up a fight. But after Virginia Rapp's death, it had made headlines all around the country, and false stories were beginning to surface about Arbuckle. Many stories were surfacing about him because, people say, oh, he's a man, he's overweight, he must be a criminal. William Randolph, he had made the scandal worse because he was promoting the false story that was about Arbuckle, and it obviously made him a lot of profit, because if you're promoting a story that's very popular, it's gonna obviously make headlines, and it's gonna make you a lot of money because it's a famous story. And that's what I said about before, how people when you're famous, people are gonna be envious, or they're just bad people. They're gonna take that one tiny mistake that you make and they're gonna bring you down with it because it could benefit them. So a con of being famous is that there are going to be people who are going to tear others down because it'll either make them money, they are sad people inside, maybe they're insecure, they're unhappy, or they are jealous about what other people have that is more than them, which is, Arbuckle he had so much money, and people, William Randolph, he sought to his benefit to bring him down because, yeah. So, his friends, Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, did not speak to the press about their friend because Arbuckle was good friends with them. However, a person named William S. Hart claimed Arbuckle guilty plea even when he didn't know him. So that's another thing that plays into how people bring you down, even when they don't know you. They're haters. So even when they don't know you, they're sad people inside, so they're gonna bring you down because it makes them happy somehow. So he brought him down, and as a result of that, Arbuckle wrote a film about Hart that resembled his cruel nature. Hart in the movie resembled a wife beater, a person who beats their wife, and the movie was called Frozen North. So when Hart made that guilty plea against him, he was like, okay, well, let's write a story about you, and let's see how that, let's see if that benefits you. So the first trial of Roscoe did not go well because the jury did not agree on a verdict. There was barely any evidence showed that Virginia Rapp was sexually assaulted. The second time that the trial happened ended up in a unanimous decision, and the third trial ended with Roscoe on acquittal, However, he was released, yet he had to pay legal fees of $10.5 million and an extra $500 for violating prohibition laws. So Arbuckle came out of jail, but he ended up broke because he was forced to sell his house and the cars to pay those legal fees. And with those fees, you come out, innocent, but you have to pay all of these legal fees. Your name is dragged to the mud. Your reputation is to the floor. You got no money. It's like, man. Arbuckle was released because Buster Keaton made a character testimony about him, meaning he told him that he was a good person, he wouldn't do something like this. Rapp's doctor also stated in his testimony that Rapp did say that Arbuckle didn't even assault her. And Zay Pravon said in his testimony that he was pressured to lie by Matthew Brady, who is San Francisco's DA. So many people played into like Arbuckle's release because Arbuckle didn't do anything wrong, and these people helped him to get released because there was no evidence against Arbuckle. And these people, Zay Pravon, Buster Keaton, and Rapp's doctor said that Rapp didn't say anything about Arbuckle assaulting her. It was a friend that made the accusation. The counter argument in this was that Arbuckle was an innocent person. He did not sexually assault Virginia Rapp. However, people may think that Arbuckle had seemed very innocent in the allegations that Maud Delmont made for Virginia Rapp. Also, Maud Delmont might have done this as justice for her friend, as she thought. However, people who do not know what's going on in the investigation of Roscoe Arbuckle scandal could be thinking that all the people standing up for Roscoe could have been paid by Arbuckle. So his friends like Buster Keaton, the doctor, Zay Pravon, they could have been paid a lot of money to say all that stuff about Arbuckle so he could be released. Another thing is that a person could have been thinking that Rapp's allegations were correct due to how Arbuckle was married 3 times. Usually when someone is married 3 times, it's either because they don't have luck in the love department, or it's because of their character, or it's because of the people that they choose to marry. But because Arbuckle is seen as a fat man and shallow, and how his name is already dragged in the mud, people could have been thinking, oh, his character must be horrible, that he married these 3 women. He cannot keep one woman, and since he is famous man, he could have had an infidelity, and people could have wiped it off like, oh yeah, he had an infidelity, but he's a famous person, so he's not that bad. So another issue that can play in this, the woman he married were Minta. This is not played into the counter argument, but someone he married 3 women. Names are Minta Durfee, Doris Dean, and Addie McPhail. He married Minta Durfee for their longest. They had the longest marriage. Doris Dean, they were married for 2 years, but ended up in divorce. It did not work out. And then he married another woman called Addie McPhail, and she was married to Arbuckle until he died. She was his last wife. Another thing that could play into this is that without solid proof that Arbuckle did not sexually assault Rapp, people had no choice but to believe the false stories that Randolph was promoting and view Roscoe in a bad light. So the people, the civilians, they did not have solid proof that Arbuckle did not assault Virginia Rapp. So with these stories that were popping up about Arbuckle, they had no choice but to believe it because that's all they had. That's all the information that they had on it. They did not know Roscoe personally. So the people must have been like, oh yeah, he's definitely he's a bad guy because he married these 3 women. He sexually assaulted Virginia Rapp and it ended in her death. People that was all they had to believe. Another thing, Roscoe Arbuckle could have sexually assaulted Virginia Rapp, but the evidence being shown, but the evidence that was shown, it could have disappeared in courtesy of Arbuckle to keep himself out of jail. So all the evidence that did not surface about him, it could have been there, but it was not there, probably because he paid someone to get rid of the evidence and there was no evidence to give, or he paid so in truth, Fatty Arbuckle could have been a really bad guy, but because there's not enough evidence to say that he just seems innocent. In my opinion, I think Roscoe Arbuckle, he's innocent. But with this kind of argument, other people may think otherwise. And I'm saying, in view of these people that, back in the day, that's all the information that they had on Fatty Arbuckle, so they could have thought many negative things about him. So all in all, the people do not know Arbuckle personally, and neither do historians. So the allegations could have been true, but there is not enough to fully convict Roscoe of the crime. So Roscoe Arbuckle could have been this horrible person, but there's not enough information that says that he is. So, and the historians, they made these articles, they made all this evidence based on what they had. It's what they had. They couldn't find more. But again, personally, I think Roscoe Arbuckle he's innocent. That's personally because that's all that I could find about him. All his friends, all these people came to his aid. And, with Arbuckle coming out of jail broke, where did he get the money to pay all these people off, The reaching conclusions of this topic is that fame can be a success, but it also brings darkness to the person's life. All it took was one allegation of sexual abuse for Fatty Arbuckle, and his life came crumbling down. He lost money, he lost his wives, his dignity, his house and cars, and his reputation went to the gutter. It wasn't even Roscoe's fault, and it all came crashing down after a few years of good success. So he came out innocent. However, it took 10 years for Fatty Arbuckle to get back on his feet and start in movies again. That says a lot of how impactful the scandal was for Arbuckle, and part of it was because of the public. The public did not make it better because of William Randolph and William S. Hart, people like that, and public itself, because that's all the stories that they had to believe. So fame can only last for so long. You will either be loved or hated, and people hated on the success of Roscoe. And if Roscoe made another tiny mistake, the response would have been the same, because he will be seen as a fat man who's a predator. And women in the past and present are usually seen as helpless and damsels in distress. So overall, Arbuckle had it hard since the beginning of his life, and he had those few years of epiphany and euphoria of success, money, happiness, and it took just one allegation. And with how it was back in the day, in the 1920s, in the 1910s, well, they couldn't do much but use what was on the silver platter. But that is my online presentation. It is 33 minutes. I'm so sorry this is long, but this information plays into this research topic. There are the three assets. The first one is how fame can be really good. The second facet is how fame can be really negative. And the third facet is how the scandal plays into Arbuckle's decline in fame. And counter argument is how other people can view Fatty Arbuckle's his scandal, the trial, how other people may view it. And then the conclusions is said. But thank you for listening. I'll upload this on YouTube, and hopefully you can watch this. Thank you for listening.